Hello and welcome to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz, and today we are going through the waiver wire ahead of week 13. Fantasy football playoffs right around the corner, and we got some team building to continue to do because holy hell, people, there are a lot of injuries to account for at this moment in time. As always, I am joined by none other than PFF's own Dwain "The Rock" McFarland. Dwain, how are you?
I'm good, man. I just started looking at all these injuries, though, this morning, thinking, I don't know. How good am I? I have like all these teams. I've got to go deal with all these crazy injuries now. So let's do it.
I've been in the Twitter streets just getting in the wars with the zero RB faithful that, there's only some people, Dwain, that are just able to predict every single injury before the year and not, miss out on a single waiver ad or a single late round pick, and credit to those that are able to do that. So us losers will just keep on grinding through along the way. But that's a story for another day. Let's start things off with quarterback.
Let's be honest. The zero RBers can't even get the right receivers. None of the receivers that are blowing up are the ones that they even said to get. So anyway, I don't disagree with zero RB. I think it can be a good strategy, but I know what you're saying.
I don't disagree with the strategy either. I get pissed off though at the implication that they're just out here nailing every first round receiver, and that when when these injuries happen, the idea that the zero RB team just has first dibs on the running backs that everyone else in the league also now wants to get or might already have. That's where I get mad, Dwayne.
I'm with you, man. I'm picking up what you're laying down, Ian.
And it's also like, I feel like zero, because the worst thing ever, I think, is victory lapping injuries. Like, that is the most disgusting part of our fantasy football injury. Where do we see that the most often? Usually with the zero RB clan. With that off of our chest now, we'll go back to our usually regular scheduled programming. My God, I cannot talk today. Great start. Let's get at the quarterback. So couple streaming options, but I think the one guy in first place is easily Taysom Hill, who is getting starter reps now. Dwayne, we talked about this situation, throughout the year. Like, why has it not gone to Taysom after Jameis Winston was lost for the year? And for people saying he had the foot injury, there were still 2 weeks where Trevor Siemian was starting without the foot injury, where he was coming off a concussion, and you can say maybe they didn't want to play him coming off the concussion. They were still out there playing him on special teams. Regardless of why Taysom Hill was not under center for the past month, he is now expected to be starting on Thursday night. So I believe Taysom is the quarterback streamer of the week because you look at what he was able to accomplish last year, and it really was fantastic in Fantasyland because of that sweet, sweet, sweet rushing. He's basically a worse passing version of Jalen Hurts. Like, that's the amount of rushing upside we are truly looking at here. And that's why he ripped off 4 QB1 finishes in his only 4 starts in 2020. So Dwayne, I want Taysom above all else. After him, I think I would look at Carson Wentz at the Texans, Tua versus the Giants, Taylor Heineke versus the Raiders, and Daniel Jones in that order. So again, I got Taysom, tier of his own, number 1 streamer of the week. After that, Wentz, Tua, Heineke, Ty God, and Daniel Jones. What say you, sir?
No, I think you actually have the order nailed. I would say with Taysom, like if you've got, we talked about this last week with Cam Newton, but if you're heading into the playoffs and maybe you're set at quarterback, but maybe like the 3 seed has been streaming, don't let them have Taysom Hill. Like, if you have a way, don't drop somebody you don't want to drop. But if you have something that you can drop just to carry Taysom Hill, even though you're going to be starting Tom Brady or Dak Prescott or whoever it is that your QB1 is, I would still be very proactive as far as adding Taysom Hill to make sure that, you're not facing him in the second round of the playoffs and you're like, wow, Taysom Hill just put up 30 on me. Like, let's avoid that.
Okay, again, people, Taysom, number 1, and then Wentz, Tua, Heineke, Tyrod, Daniel Jones. Those are streamers of the week. Again, this is for guys that look to be owned around 50% of leagues. Please go check out PFF.com. You can use code CYBER40 to get a subscription, save 40% off, and see our rankings for a specific quarterback order. So by some chance, like Joe Burrow is available in your league, obviously play him over these other guys. Just wanted to get that clear. Moving right along to running back. Dwayne, we talked about this situation a lot last night, actually, and everyone can catch our Sunday review pod up Sunday nights, Monday mornings over wherever the hell you're listening to this current podcast. But basically, don't be overly fooled by Christian McCaffrey being done for the year and now turning over the backfield to Chuba Hubbard. CMC is done on IR with the ankle injury. The problem is that Chuba, when he was in the picture earlier in the year, we didn't have to worry about Amir Abdullah as much. I mean, we saw something named Rodney Smith come in and really make this an annoying split. Now it seems like Abdullah is even more ingrained than Rodney ever was as the pass down back. So Dwayne, like, I'm fine with going to get Chuba, but I am not going to blow my fab on him over some of these other options. And I'm happy to see that your dog agrees with me. And I just think that the ceiling, particularly when you look at this offense right now and just the putrid state of the offensive line, the schedule coming up, the fact that they still have a bye week, I just think there are much better options to go after, namely Alexander Mattison and Jamaal Williams.
Yeah, I'm with you. When you look at what Abdullah did last week, 73% of the long down and distance, 100% of the 2-minute offense. Now, of course, by the time he came in the game, the Panthers were trailing. But guess what? The Panthers, they do quite a bit of trailing. So I think there's just going to be situations where we're going to see Amir Abdullah on the field plenty. I do think Chuba will still be the 1A. Yeah. But it is more of a 1A and a 1B. I don't think it's a 1 and a 2. So most of the passing down work, like you mentioned, will go to Abdullah. We'll see Hubbard handle the early down work, but that could be out of hand by the third quarter in a lot of these games the Panthers are in. The good news, I don't want to say it's the good news, the one thing you do get with Chuba over Mattison and some of the other guys is just that you know that he's going to be involved the rest of the season, because CMC is being shut down for the season.
Right.
So there's going to be some value. And, injuries and other things happen. Who knows? Amir Abdullah could get hurt. So you just got to keep that into consideration. But I think you pretty much summarized it well.
God, this schedule is brutal, though. We got the bye coming up. Then we get the Falcons. That's great. Bills, not really great. I know we've seen Jonathan Taylor do it, but we know everyone is a Jonathan Taylor. And then to end the year, Buccaneers, Saints, Buccaneers. Just not what you want to see, people. Those are truly like the top two defenses in terms of loading the box, not necessarily loading the box, but just consistently shutting down opposition's rushing attacks. So Chuba, he's someone that's going to be ranked more in that probably RB20 to RB24 range, whereas someone like Alexander Mattison is going to be a weekly top 10 option at the position. We have seen him this year rip off an RB6 and an RB7 finish as the lead back in Minnesota. And his biggest hole, the biggest issue with Alexander Mattison as a handcuff over the past 2 years has been the presence of Amir Abdullah, who is now, being the annoying factor over in Carolina. So Alexander Mattison fully deserves to be the go-to running back to go get on waivers. I mean, right now, the word on Dalvin Cook is that with no complications, if everything goes perfectly according to plan, he'll be back in week 15 against the Bears. So even even 2 weeks of Mattison, I think, is more than worth the price of admission. Dwayne, I think we can all agree Mattison is the top easy go-to out of the week. After that, though, I would even want Jamaal Williams, I think, ahead of Chuba at this point, because you look at what's going on with Swift. He is, per Coach Dan Campbell, still pretty sore after suffering the shoulder sprain. And Campbell said it's hard to say that you would be seeing him this week. And you look at this schedule, man, Vikings, Broncos, Cardinals, and then Falcons and Seahawks to end the year. I know Swift isn't like guaranteed to be out for the year or anything like that. With that said, we're looking at 3 fantastic matches. We have Jamaal, who kind of gives us at least a chance of having flex value on a week-to-week basis anyway. It's not like he's completely disappearing once Swift comes back. And with this shoulder injury to one of your best players in a lost season, I don't think it would be shocking if they aren't exactly overloading Swift with his usual workload when he comes back. So, Dwayne, just for, I guess, the sake of week 13, I was saying before Chuba, RB20, RB24 range likely, Mattison legit top 10 back. Where do you kind of think Jamaal falls? I would say it'd be closer to Chuba, but I will be ranking him higher than Chuba.
I think he'll be more like a mid-range RB2. I think Chuba's low-end RB2, borderline high-end RB3, just because of the Abdullah role. So I think Jamaal Williams, for every week you get him, he's going to be probably somewhere around RB18 in the ranks. Cool. Some weeks a little higher, some weeks maybe a little lower, just depending on, what's going on with the matchup. So we'll have to see what happens with Swift. But to your point around the injury and, how do the Lions really want to play this long term? We see a lot of players every year at this time, Ian, they just start to shut them down, especially on a team like the Lions where they're not doing much. So it wouldn't surprise me if they just play it, overly cautious with Swift. So I would agree. I think Mattison, they're not going to say that Dalvin's done because, if you look at the Vikings, they've had so many close losses and they're still in the race, right? So they're going to want Dalvin Cook to come back. But a lot could happen in the next 2 weeks. The Vikings lose their next 2 games. They may just be like, screw it. We're not bringing Dalvin Cook back. Why do we even do that? A lot of things can change. And it's what you said. The key part is for the next 2 weeks, probably 3 weeks is more likely at least, you're gonna have Mattison in the top 12 backs. And so you just take that top 12 production for 3 weeks and, yeah, maybe you don't get the rest of the season like you do with Chuba Hubbard, but we're almost to the end of the season anyway. What are we talking about? An extra game or two, depending on how your league is set up. So I do believe that Mattison is the absolute go-to this week.
Number 1, Mattison. Number 2, Williams. Number 3, Chuba. After that, Dwayne, I think a lot of these situations are noise and people really shouldn't be too overreacting to some of the guys out there. We got Matt Breida. Had the touchdown on Thanksgiving. We saw Zach Moss was a healthy scratch. The thing was, Devin Singletary was still working as the lead back in that one with a 68% snap rate, 16 combined carries and targets to Breida's just 11. And you look at the schedule to end the year, Patriots, Buccaneers, Panthers, Patriots, and Falcons. Okay, I know 2 of those games are winnable, but still, this is already a running back room that we're not, I mean, it's not a guarantee that Moss is just going to be a healthy scratch every week here on 4th. And it's also a situation that even when we've had 2 backs, it's still been hard enough to get a lot of fantasy value. And that's really, I think, the point for a lot of these situations. With the Eagles, we got Boston Scott making some noise, but Nick Sirianni is saying both Miles Sanders and Jordan Howard are heading in the right direction to suit up this week. Tevin Coleman just played 45% of the offensive snaps in a random game that the Jets actually got to play with a positive game script. We still have to worry about multiple other parties in New York. And freaking Houston, we got David Johnson and Rex Burkhead. For now, they're splitting it, but it still seems likely that Royce Freeman carves some sort of role into this offense sooner rather than later. And once again, even if we are stuck with the 2-back committee, finally, it's in an offense that might actually not give us any sort of upside. We got Tony Jones out there, but Mark Ingram was listed as a full participant in practice. Kamara was limited. And then Tennessee, it's Hilliard and Foreman at this second, but with the week 13 bye, it looks like McNichols would probably be healthy enough to return after that, once again rendering it into a 3-back committee. So, Dwayne, like, people need 1 week stoppers, and I get it. I don't think these guys are all necessarily useless for that purpose. At the same time, though, I just see such a massive drop-off after these big 3. Do any of these situations really warrant someone going out of their way to get these guys to you?
No, I think, honestly, like what you just outlined is where my head's been as I've been writing the utilization report today. It's just like nothing that I can get behind like 100% past like this next game. Like you just don't know what's going to happen with any of these situations. Dontrell Hilliard, I like the way he looked, but even in the game we just saw with Foreman, he was really just the passing down back, but they were getting destroyed. So he was out there because, that you had the Titans, trailing, and they were running more. They ran the ball still like 60% of the time, despite getting blown out by the Patriots. But it was really more Foreman handling all the early down work. And then you're going to get McNichols back. So, for all like the range of outcomes on Hilliard is pretty wide. You know what I mean? Like he could just keep that job and it just stays as a two-way split, and you're like, oh, well, he's a top 24 back. He might be in that scenario, but there's also the chance McNichols cuts in and you get a 3-way backfield. There's also the chance that McNichols just takes that job and Dontrell Hilliard doesn't even play.
That's what I think is going to happen, Dwayne. Like,
yeah, it's just a wide range. So if you want to throw a dart because you're in a super deep league and it's just there's nothing else available, we get it. Like, go ahead and go for it. It's just hard to say with any kind of confidence that that's going to remain. I've seen some hype on Hilliard on Twitter, and I get it. Like, he looked good. But be honest with ourselves. Like, it was a draw play that he broke off for a long carry. They didn't do a lot after that. And look, he did what he needed to do. But it was like the seas basically parted for Dontrell Hilliard, on that particular play. So I just can't get excited. Tony Jones, I wouldn't even really bother with, to be honest. Like, it's a men bid type situation. And you hit the flaws with the rest of these guys. Like Boston Scott, I would love to like, but you're getting the other 2 guys probably back.
Like, literally, McNichols has been their backup running back dating back to 2020. He just got a concussion. Like, what about Hilliard, who's been on the team for a month, is going to take over that job? Yeah, he had a nice game against the Patriots. He caught a bunch of dump offs against the Texans the week before. I really think that he could be a healthy scratch. There's a wide range of outcomes. I get it. Maybe they say, screw you, Jeremy, you're not going to take your starting job back. But even if we do get Hilliard and Foreman back in this situation, we shouldn't be expecting them to be balling out the same way they just did, because this Titans offense looks borderline horrific without Henry, AJB, or Julio. So good points all around. Moral of the story for running back: go get Alexander Mattison, then Jamaal Williams, then Chuba. After that, a lot of this is noise. We'll see what happens as the injuries progress. We'll have updates throughout the week in our game-by-game preview and all that. But as things stand right now, just not many situations to feel good about. Too many backs and offenses that don't carry much upside as it is. Final note here: if Tony Pollard's out there, obviously go get him. With that said, Zeke was listed as a full participant in practice on Monday, which seems like he's not really on the verge of sitting, as we were hearing some rumors. Do you have any read on that situation, Dwayne?
No, I just heard the same thing. As of this morning, it was still, or late last night, it was like, oh, Zeke may get shut down. But then all the news today has been, no, he's practicing. He's probably going to play.
Yeah, so, the guy's missed one game in his career due to injury. I think he's going to try to gut it out the best he can. We'll see. Obviously, if stuff changes, we will change our opinion as well as the new information comes to the surface. With wide receiver, not a ton to love. We're seeing Josh Reynolds pop up after he scored the Thanksgiving Day touchdown. It's like primetime game touchdowns are just worth like 10 times more in people's minds, Dwayne. I always see the dudes that were scoring in these national TV games in the waiver columns on the next week. Just realized like he had the same usage in week 11 as he did in week 12. What happened in week 11? He goose-egged because Jared Goff doesn't want his wide receivers to have nice things. This has been the story of the entire season in Detroit. One week it's Amon-Ra St. Brown. The next it's Khalif Raymond. Now we got Josh Reynolds. They will pop off occasionally, but you just have no sense of confidence for when it's going to happen. Just try to stay away. We also got Juwan Jennings for the 49ers. Deebo Samuel is expected to miss a little time per Ian Rappaport with that groin injury, but it's not considered major. And just realize, Jennings had the touchdown. He's yet to play 40% of the offensive snaps this year, though. We still got Trent Sherfield, Travis Benjamin. It took months for Brandon Ayuk to get out of the Shanahan doghouse. If you think Jennings is all of a sudden going to go out there, work ahead of Ayuk, work ahead of Kittle and these other wide receivers in what's already a run-first offense, I got some land in Florida I would love to sell to you. Also got Kendrick Bourne, wide receiver 23 on the year, if I want to be a dick and, not include per game stats. Either way, he is producing well. I think he is the number 2 ad of the week at wide receiver. Again, though, not someone that we're necessarily feeling great about firing up. I still think Jacoby is going to be the lead target getter more weeks than not. And as we've seen with Mac Jones, more than fine with just spreading the ball around. We'll see Aguilar and the tight ends pop up here and there as well. But Dwayne, I think the number 1 ad is someone that you told people to go put a couple dollars on a couple weeks ago, and that is DeSean Jackson. Derek Carr, perfect. 158.3 passer rating when targeting D-Jacks. We've seen his snaps, reps go up each of the past 3 weeks that he's been with the Raiders. Like, Dwayne, I'm not sure if we're going to get D-Jacks into the same kind of borderline wide receiver 2 territory that Ruggs was starting to flirt with. But either way, this is a boom or bust wide receiver 3 type that I think we could actually start to feel okay about starting in deeper 12-14 team leagues.
Yeah, no, I think D-Jax is definitely at the top of this list. I don't like this list, really. I love what your sheet says in front of me that I'm looking at. It says 2 names and then whatever. That's kind of how I feel. But no, with Jackson, look, I don't think he'll ever be up to like 90% of the routes or anything like that at his age. But if he gets to 70 to 80%, we saw Nelson Aguilar be very successful in that range last year with Derek Carr. So, and I think DeSean Jackson, when healthy, is a better player still at this point in his career than Nelson Aguilar. So, and it's like you said with Ruggs, we were starting to see a little bit of that. We could probably argue that DeSean Jackson is actually better than Henry Ruggs is. We never really saw that much from Ruggs. He was stretching out the defense, but it's not like he was making a ton of plays. Jackson, we know that he can make the plays. It's just how long can he stay healthy? But I would look for his, participation as far as routes to continue to increase, probably getting up towards like the 75, 80% range. He really is the piece that gives them the best chance to win. Obviously, with Waller being out, there's a little bit more to go around. Well, Waller will be week to week, but My guess is Waller's going to miss this next game. There's probably going to be a little bit more, to go around to Jackson and Renfro and some of these other players. So, yeah, I would have D-Jax first. Bourne is interesting. It's basically just up to the Patriots, like on the matchup. Like, are they going to use more 11 personnel? And in those games, like, Bourne plays well. You probably just want to put Bourne in your 2 wide receiver sets, if you're the Patriots. Like, you guys are terrible at ever finding a receiver, and you finally have one that's showing something. And it's like, no, let's just keep him off the field. Let's keep him over here. We're going to keep Nelson Aguilar out there. And I know they have different roles on the offense, to be fair. Kendrick Bourne's more their move-around player. They get him into space. They do a lot of different things with him. Nelson Aguilar's pretty much just out there running coverage off all day long. Poor guy's out there running gassers. Nobody ever throws him the ball. So Bourne, yeah, I think that's fine at 2. Bourne, for me, is like a sell high if you can. It's like you said, he's wide receiver 23 on the year. If you look at points per game, he's 36. So if you can get anything for him now and you already have him on your roster and you're a deeper format, just try to unload Kendrick Bourne now, because you just don't know which weeks he's going to be out there for 60% of the pass plays versus which week it will be 80%. And it's also still a run first offense at the end of the day.
He's had last week wide receiver 4 finish pre-Monday Night Football. 2 weeks ago, he was wide receiver 5. That's fantastic. What was he the 3 other weeks? Sandwiched in there, 43, 56, and 56. Like, that's the floor we're talking about. And that's why, yeah, I can see how Bourne can go and have some nice weeks. He has had some nice weeks. That's great. But don't go point chasing in an offense that we know is still run first and awfully spread out.
His 2.18, he's at 2.18 yards per route run. So he's doing some nice things. It's just really more about the offense that he resides in and the way they use him.
Exactly. All right, real quick with some tight ends. Number 1 guy you should be getting all day long to go fill that tight end need is Foster Moreau. Dwain, it's basically the same thing as we've kind of seen in Washington and Philly over the past few years, where tight end 1 goes down, tight end 2 steps up. And in Foster Moreau's case, he's actually demonstrated some high-level talent, even dating back to his rookie year. I mean, they brought in Jason Witten last year to be a progress stopper, kind of ruined his. I think Moreau might have been hurt a little bit there too, if my memory serves me correctly. So wasn't exactly given the chance to ball out, but we saw him return some top 10 production when Waller missed a game earlier this year. And I think he'll be maybe not a top 8 option at the position. He's not going to be Darren Waller 2.0 by any stretch. At the same time, Dwain, this is someone that does, I think, deserve to be the top tight end streamer of the week and someone we're going to probably find a way to squeeze inside that top 12.
Yeah, I mean, he's tight end 4 week 7 when we were without Waller. So, and like you said, there's also a track record with Foster Moreau. It's not like he's just one of these guys that he's not John Bates, right? Literally just out of nowhere. Like, we know a little bit about Moreau. He's got a track record. So I do like him a lot as far as for this week. If it's just a rest of the season play, I still would value Cole Kmet over Foster Moreau for the rest of the season. But if it's, I just need a starter for this week, Foster Moreau's definitely the play.
100%. Cole Kmet, yes, 8 catches, 65 yards last week. Naturally, after everyone streamed him in DFS the week before, and he dudded. It's just the Bears offense. I mean, Jimmy No Trade Clause Graham did come down with the touchdown of the group in that Thanksgiving Day game. So it just kind of depends. Darnell Mooney is going to be the number 1 in Chicago, but once Allen Robinson comes back, you do start to wonder about Kmet. So we kind of know who he is at this point. He is a full-time tight end in a bad offense that if you're in a pinch and you need someone, hey, at least we know he can rack up receptions from time to time. Just realize I don't see really much of a way that Kmet's going to sneak too much further inside of the ranks, aside from being, top 15, top 16 area. After that, we do have James O'Shaughnessy. He's a reasonable add if you really need someone. He was starting to put together some nice weeks to start the year. We didn't know what this rotation was going to look like with him and Dan Arnold in there. We don't have to worry about it because unfortunately Arnold is probably done for the rest of the year with a knee injury. And then just real quickly, no on Jack Doyle. None of the usage changed. It's still a 3 tight end committee in Indy. So Dwain, Moreau, Kmet, O'Shaughnessy, Doyle, same page?
That is the order.
I freaking love it. I love all you listeners of the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Hope you guys' seasons have been going well. Hope Thanksgiving treated you well. And we got 5 more weeks of this to go capture some fantasy championship glory. So, Dwain, anything else you want to get off your chest?
No, man. I think we hit it all. The running backs, go work your wire.
Go work it.
Don't leave Taysom Hill there for another good team. Block.
Yeah, just real quick in conclusion, because I know we did cover a good amount there. Quarterback, go get Taysom Hill. If you can't get Taysom Hill, you need a streamer. We're looking at Carson Wentz, Tua, Taylor Heineke, Tyrod, and Daniel Jones in that order among usually available guys. At running back, for the love of God, yes, go get Alexander Mattison, buy the hype. After him, Jamaal Williams, and then the Panthers crew, namely Chuba Hubbard. Everyone else has enough holes, enough question marks with their usage and offense overall that we're not freaking out too bad about these guys. Wide receiver DeSean Jackson above all else. Also don't mind Kendrick Bourne. And at tight end, go get yourself some Foster Moreau for however long Darren Waller is sidelined. For Dwain, I'm Ian. Thank you as always for tuning in to this edition of the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. And until next time, take care, everybody.